Hello, today I am going to teach you the game Flamme Rouge. This is a game by Asker Harding Greniard, published in the United States by Stronghold Games. This plays from 2 to 4 players. It is a bicycle racing game set in around the 1920s. It's really simple, really fun, and I will teach you how to play right now. So at the start, you can go ahead and select which player color you want. I am playing with the green player right now, but you have black, red, and blue, and they all have unique artwork on the cards and mat, which is really cool. You each get a deck of cards that have your player color on them, so that's the green player there. And they are 2 different decks, a sprinter and a rouleur. This person generally has higher valued cards. This one has slightly lower valued cards. And the purpose of the game is to get your racer to go all the way around the track and finish first. So the first player to cross even just one of their racers over the finish line is the winner. So it's a race, simple as that. The game is very simple. Right now I have it set up with the recommended course, which is the Avenue Corso Paseo, which is in the rule book as well. But there are other courses you can select. Some of them have mountains, ascents, and descents, which I'll get into those rules in just a little bit. But right now this course is just a straight, flat track. Every space on the board has 2 spots. This is considered, the small rectangle there is considered a lane, and this whole thing right here, that's considered a square, and I'll explain what that means in just a second. So at the start of the game, the start player is whoever rode a bike first, or rode a bike last, I'm sorry, or tied goes to the youngest player, and in clockwise order you're going to take each one of your racers and you're going to put them anywhere behind the start line. So these tracks, by the way, I know I said I set it up according to this. There's little notation marks on the tracks, so you can set them up in different ways, and the tracks will describe basically how you set them up. So you start by placing your racers on the board. And so the green player is going to go first, and you can place them anywhere behind the start line. The green player is going to place both their racers just right at the very tippy top of the start. And then, red kind of place theirs a little bit further back in the pack. Black place theirs a little bit further back, and then blue place theirs right there. For all intents and purposes, when 2 people are on the same square, they're essentially they're basically tied for position. The person on the rightmost side, which is always going to be indicated by these little double lines there on the track, that's always the right-hand side. That's the inside lane. If you ever were to make movement, you always have, and there's nothing in the right-hand lane, you always have to move your rider over into the right-hand lane. So that's just something to note for later. So in any case, so we've placed all our racers, and now we are going to try to get them across the finish line. To get your racers to move, you have your 2 decks here. There's distribution of numbers in the decks, and this is your reference card. So it kind of tells you in your sprinter deck you've got 3 cards that are 9, 3 that are 5, 4, 3, 2, and then again rouleur has a little bit slower. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 cards off the top of my deck. Of either deck, doesn't matter which one I choose to start. Take 4 of them, I look at them, and then I am going to, a lot of 9s there, so I am going to take one of those cards and I kind of lock it in to my position here. And then the other cards, the term is recycling. So I take these and I'm going to put them underneath my deck face up so that I know when I've reached the end of my deck. When I reach into my deck, I shuffle those cards up, and then I will have them for the remainder of the game. When I play a card, though, once it's played, once I've moved my rider that space, this card is discarded from the game, so you're never going to get that movement card again. So in any case, I take one of my decks, choose one of my decks, look at 4 of them, lock one into place, recycle the other 3, then I choose the other deck, grab 4 cards and do the same thing. I cannot do both of them at the same time. I have to do them one at a time. So this one I'm going to choose, I'll choose this 7, and I'm going to lock that in, and then I'll recycle the rest. All right, so once everybody has done that, then starting with whoever's basically in order of the race pack here, we move. So these racers are marked with an S and an R. So the sprinter, who is on the rightmost track, is going first. So the sprinter is going to reveal their card, and they move 9. So they move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And while they're moving, it really doesn't matter if they change lanes. That's a free thing. If they wanted to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. You're always going to end up in the same spot. Now, my roller is going to go, and he moves 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, anytime you end a movement and that right lane is still free, you always have to move your person over into the right lane. Then everybody else would go. Let's just move them up for, you know, whatever purposes we want. That looks good. And once everybody has played their cards, again, those get discarded from the game. And then we assess any slipstreaming. So slipstreaming is something that happens in bicycle racing, basically, and car racing. Essentially, if you are ever one square, you know, I'll just do this just for fun. If there's ever one empty square in front of a rider, and we go starting with the back of the pack, then they will move up to the next square if there's somebody in front of them. So in this scenario, both red and black have one empty square in front of them, and then another rider in front. Whether there was, you know, this scenario or the scenario we just showed, there's somebody up there. So these two riders are going to slipstream and go and slide right up next to them. So they've just gained a free movement essentially, which is great because you want to play cards that will get you just up next to the pack so that you can kind of you know, gain that extra movement. I should also note that if at any point, let's just say this is the next turn, if the red rider had, say, movement, let's say this is what's going on. If this red rider had a movement of 2, so they would go 1, 2. If you ever cannot go into a square, you have to go back to the next available square that's 2. You can move through people, so if rider here had 2, they could 1, 2. That's fine. So you can move through riders, you just can't end on a space with a rider. So in any case, we had this pack, they slipstreamed ahead, and then we see, is there just one empty square between the next pack and this person? No, there's more than one empty square. So this whole pack stops slipstreaming. If, for instance, though, this person was here, then the whole pack gets to move up one additional space. Okay? They all move together as a pack, and they all get that slipstreaming bonus. So let's just say right here, so blue has 2 empty squares in front of them, so that means they don't get to slipstream, everybody else doesn't get to move. Now this whole pack, we see who is the furthest ahead in the pack. And this blue rider, only this blue rider is the furthest ahead of this pack, so they're going to get an exhaustion card. Exhaustion cards come in both the sprinter and roller decks, and as you'll see, the backs of them match the backs of everybody's card. So essentially you get these cards, they're a movement of 2, so they're very low, the lowest you can move, and they will go into the deck of whichever rider. So that was the blue sprinter, so the blue player would get one of these cards, and they put it recycled into the bottom of their deck, and then eventually, you know, when they reshuffle, they're going to be more tired because they'll have more exhaustion in their deck. So that pack is done slipstreaming, and it's always whoever's in front of the pack. So then now we have this pack here. This green rider has 1 space ahead head that's empty, but they're able to slipstream up there. And now this pack is complete. Now the green Sprinter has nobody in front of them. They're leading the pack, so that means the green Sprinter is also going to get an exhaustion card. Put that into the green Sprinter deck. Okay. That's basically one turn. We shuffle, or not, we don't shuffle, we grab another 4 cards, rinse and repeat, do the same thing over and over again until we've made it all the way around the track. Let's see here. So if you ever run out of cards, like let's say if I was trying to draw up some cards for my turn, so I draw, let's say I had 2 cards and then I ran out of cards to draw, I would immediately reshuffle these and then draw up the remainder of the cards. If I ever had, only, let's say 3 cards in my hand or something, I'm only going to play with whatever these cards are until I completely run out of cards. And if I completely run out of cards, then I just take an exhaustion card, play it, and then that's all I can move. It's just 2 spaces for the rest of the game, basically. Oops, excuse me. Okay, so I do want to mention real quick the mountains, the ascents and the descents. The mountains are ascents, I guess I should say. They are red bordered squares. So what this means is, if you were essentially what you do is you can never move more than 5 spaces if you cross over a red line. If you start in the red line, you can never move more than 5 movement spaces. So if I played a movement 9 here, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's it. I can't move more than 5. Also, if there was somebody in front of me, there's no slipstreaming that can take place on an ascent. So both this person would get an exhaustion card and this person would get an exhaustion card because, again, there's nobody in front of them, so they're exhausted. And that's just kind of how it goes. If, let's say I played a 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 would have moved me onto the red, I would not get to move that 6th space. I would just have to sit back here, because if the 6th move or higher would move you into a red space, you can never move 5 or more spaces, and that's just kind of how it goes. Now, descents are slightly different. I have a blue one here. So on descents, if you ever are, again, this is, I would still be in red. So if I'm ever in blue, no matter what card I play, whether it's a 2 exhaustion or anything else, it's always a minimum of 5 movements. So if I was here and I played a 2, that counts as a 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Also, slipstreaming happens as normal. So if both of us ended in this position, I would still slipstream into there. You can play higher numbered cards when you're on a descent. That's fine. It's just that every card has a minimum of 2 movement. And I believe that's all of the rules. I'm just going to double check. Yeah, believe so. Yep. So, I mean, the game is really easy. They do recommend, if you're playing with inexperienced players, if you're experienced, start the game with an additional exhaustion card. 1, 2, 3, however many you think it takes to kind of handicap the game so that, it's an even playing field. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Thanks.